It's Monica Michelle with Invisible Not Broken, and I got to interview Ann-Britt, and I low-key stalked her on TikTok after I saw a video of her. She's an amazing musician, and I love her music, but I saw some of her behind-the-scenes videos, and she was laying on the floor resting in between sets, and I was just blown away with how much I needed to talk to her because she's someone who is working on boundaries and boundaries in her professional career and in a field that is not always loving or caring to mental health and physical health. So I was able to talk with her about that along with other issues like when is it time to use a wheelchair? When do we decide as someone who is still ambulatory but has things like Ehlers-Danlos or POTS, when and how to start thinking about choosing a wheelchair? We talked about parenting with wheelchair life. Also talked about her upcoming song and the importance and the heartbreak of where you come from. I hope you enjoy this talk. I loved it so much. We are a chronic illness and disability podcast network where we have other people with disabilities and chronic illness. I run Invisible Not Broken. So be kind, be gentle, and in whatever way it looks like to you, be fierce. And please tune in.
All right, and I am really excited about this. We've been trying to do this for about 3 months.
I know.
Yeah,
Thank you for waiting for me. I had a lot of happen to me in the past.
it's my fault. So we're all good.
No, that is it's a roller coaster, with your chronic illness and things, right? You're fine and then you're not.
We are diseased. We share the same disorder, so I completely understand.
Yeah.
And you were so kind when I had to cancel. So that's just the joy of being a chronic illness podcast, where we cancel on each other all the time and are really happy when it works out.
And it's okay.
So one of the things that really drew me to you is I've been
Mhm.
on TikTok. I stopped using Twitter to find guests because Twitter became scary, and I
Mhm.
moved over to TikTok. And I found a video of you because you're an amazing musician, so I love your music.
Thank you.
But I saw a video where in the middle of a recording session, you were resting and laying down. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need more people to show that boundaries and the ability to still create under what you can create like. So I just want to
Yeah.
hear more about your life. You're from Denmark, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
I just want
Yes.
to hear about you and what you've been doing. And I also wanted to thank you for showing me how better to create my boundaries.
Well, thank you. I'm glad I can help others as well. And you guys help me as well. I think this is what's so good about connecting as a community is we help each other because I'm not able to do what I do right now without having help from others. We help each other because when I first got sick, I couldn't do my music. I couldn't do this. I was like down. I was depressed. What am I, is this it? So going back, one of the things I'm dealing with, you have to just bear with me, is brain fog. Just like that. What am I saying? I can't remember what I was saying. So if I just like that, I have a big question mark. That's why. So going back to, I am from Denmark. I'm born and raised in Denmark. I grew up not knowing that I had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, but I had a lot of symptoms, but that was just being Ann-Britt. I couldn't walk without being in a ton of pain. I was extremely pigeon-toed. My hips were way too loose. My mom told me I cried when I tried to walk as a toddler. The doctors wanted to put both my legs in casts and give me operating my hips, but my mom and dad said no. The doctor said the best thing Ann-Britt can do then is swim, because swimming is a low-impact sport and it's best for her joints because all her joints are too loose. So I took that to heart and I became a champion swimmer. And with that, I have been able to go through my life without really falling apart I started having symptoms after my pregnancies, had two beautiful children. I moved over here in 1992 from Denmark to California and started my life over here. And I start slowly having little issues with my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, but not enough for it to be like, okay, I can't do my regular life. So for a long time, I was a Pilates instructor, I was a swim coach, I was an activities director, I did all these things, but then my hips started to keep popping out and I had more issues, migraines, I bent it down a lot because I'm a swim coach, and I got dizzy and almost like fainted. It's like, well, I don't know what's going on. And then just like that, 7 years ago, thing really fell apart and I got sick. I had problem on my legs. I was so weak in my legs. I had extreme spasms. My neck was terrible. I had a neck collar on for 2 years. That's just all these symptoms for 2 years. I didn't know what was going on. And that's scary, like you probably know, right? And others with chronic illness is that one of the scary thing is when you have a normal life and you're used to go, 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 and then just like that, you can't do any of those things. What is going on? I got tested for ALS. Thank God I didn't have that. I got tested for any kind of cancer. Thank God I didn't have that. But what is it then? The EDS doctors here and there for all these trying to find what was going on sometimes said, well, maybe it's EDS, but we don't know who tests it. So thank God I went down to the San Diego, the Raiders Hospital, the Children's Hospital in San Diego. They had a geneticist that tested me, and yes, I did have EDS. So that just helped me get to that point. So now I knew what it was, but I said, what do I do about it? So I had a lot of things happening. I always had the gastro issues. So through and my walking, I'm dependent on a wheelchair and all this stuff outside the house. My legs totally falling apart if I don't use a wheelchair. So just going back just a little bit, before I got sick, I was also a singer. I performed live, like at restaurants, events. And I did gigs, like 3-hour gigs, and now I couldn't do any of that. And it was really depressing because that was really my love, was music, but I felt like I couldn't do it. But one of my musicians told me that, Ann-Britt, why don't you write down your feelings? And even if you can't sit in front of the piano for a long time and do what you used to do, just do what you can. So I did that. And that was literally my therapy. And I think that's really what kept me going, because my symptoms was terrible. I was really sick for a long time. I'm on a feeding tube. I can't eat regular food. I have a backpack with me, all day long because I can't eat. I'm a gastroparesis and dysphagia because of my EDS. So it's very depressing, and your life you live in this little bubble. So I found the music and I took my heart and soul into my music. And it didn't matter if I only had 10 minutes out of my energy of the day. Well, then I used that playing a piano. Or I laid in bed and wrote my feelings down. And before I knew it, turned into lyrics. And then I put it in my little notebook, and then I added my music to it. And then before 7 years, I now have enough for a whole full album of my music that I'm coming out with here in the spring of next year, 2025. And I had no idea that was going to happen. I literally did it for myself, for my own healing of feeling like, okay, I can't do all these things. I'm depressed. I've always been a coach and a teacher. What can I do? I can't do any of these things, but now I realize that my music, my messages it's about hope. It's about not giving up. There's always another way. It's kind of my thing now. I'm taking with me. It's actually the name of my album. It's called Another Way, because as you know, with a chronic illness, you always have to find another way. There is no straight line. You think you're going to do something today, and then, nope, I'm in bed, or I'm not feeling well. I can't do this later because I'm doing this right now. So, yeah. So that's a lot.
So many wonderful things to unpack here. So I'm trying to decide which part I want to unpack first. One of the things you're just talking about that I think is so important is the mental health aspect of chronic illness.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of keeping a journal, or if you're like me and your wrists and your fingers pop out, just having your iPhone or your whatever device you have that has a recording. I do a lot of voice recordings of story ideas that I want to work on.
Nice.
And I think that what you just talked about is such an important part, because creation is the antithesis of apathy, right? Like,
Yeah.
as we get lonely and isolated and depressed, creation is kind of the one thing that we can control,
Exactly. Yeah.
do, and still cast a shadow in the world. Like,
Hmm.
it's hard when you're in a room to still cast a shadow, and you're bringing up so many wonderful ideas. I really love the idea of keeping that notebook by you, or at least something to record.
Yeah.
One of the things I've wanted to talk to you about, and we will discuss your creativity and the music, but I just wanted to talk about the physicality of what you were saying, because I think a lot of people don't think about this part, and it's being an ambulatory wheelchair user. Wish to every power that be that I had let go of whatever weird ego trip
Yeah.
I was on, that I shouldn't use a wheelchair. I
Hmm.
wasn't there yet. I was giving up. I was giving in. A cane was scary. Crutches were scary. A wheelchair was a no-go. And I
Yeah.
wish so much I just let that go. What was it that helped you get to the point where you're like, you know what? Maybe I can walk, but I shouldn't. And this wheelchair is necessary.
That's I'm glad you're touching that point, because a lot of times people, when you see a person in a wheelchair and you're moving and you're standing up, it's like, what? Hey, what is that? Are you faking it? People that don't get it, right? No, it's not like that. There's no way I want to be in this thing, but I don't have a choice. It literally came to the point. The first time I needed a wheelchair, my son was going to Denmark for a year, and I had to walk him to the airport, to from the car to the airport, and I realized I couldn't do that. I literally, uh, we need to find a wheelchair to get me just to say goodbye to him, because I couldn't walk that far. So what happens? I have dysautonomia on top of it, on top of my joints and my hips gives in. I'm like an unsteady bridge. My joints and my hips just kind of get like those little air things that man on the street that goes like this, right? I feel like that, and then just like that, somebody flattens it, like, and then it doesn't work. So if I try to walk from A to B, like from here to a store, like to Trader Joe's, my legs will give in by the time I get to the opening at the door, and I can't use a walker by that time, because then my dysautonomia kicks in, and I have to sit down because I get dizzy and I will faint. So it's like the two opponents, right? My hips and my joints will just give in, and then my dysautonomia, and I get sick, I get nausea, it's just, I gotta lay down. Now I'm gonna lay down and forget it. I'm not going anywhere. So I feel like I didn't have a choice, and it was either that or staying home and not doing anything. And because before I got sick, I was so active, I couldn't just stay home. I was like, I have to get out of the house. I want to just go shopping, even if I can't do more than 5 minutes, because you probably know with dysautonomia, you can't just go shop and socialize like you used to. But at least you can do a little bit. I needed to do that. And I didn't know at the time, but I know now that if I had been more stubborn about just push myself, then my ME part of it, my chronic fatigue, would have gotten worse. Because I know that if I push, then I end up more in bed, because I know myself so well. And I don't know if it's because I have an athlete background. I know my body really well. When I'm so fatigued, I grab my wheelchair in the house, and I take it and I use it in the house, because I did my spoons for the day. I did my energy my legs can handle for today, and then I have to use a wheelchair. So it is a learning process, but I'm proud of myself that I did say yes. I'm using it, and I don't care. I don't care, because this is what I am, and this is what it is. I'd rather do that than, yeah, they had to call the emergency and pick me up because I fainted in front of Trader Joe's. Right?
I do not want to pay that $8,000 emergency room bill. So
No,
no.
and I don't want to just stay home. So it is what it is. And then my job is to, and I think it's something I actually thought about, and glad you mentioned it. I want to do some TikTok videos about that, exactly about why am I using a wheelchair? I can stand a little bit, I can do this thing. Well, this is why.
Yeah.
So because we need to educate about that. It's not just somebody that is, that's not used
The
usually.
amount of violence I've had and dealt with because someone saw me stand up and wait for my wheelchair to get built, just having people come up and just screaming at me,
That's
hands in my
terrible.
face, people praying over my legs. Like, I do not
Yeah,
understand what's going on with people, but I'm so tired.
I
I
know.
do want to
It's
ask you,
terrible.
how did you choose? So when I finally decided like wheelchair is just going to have to happen, my insurance company stepped in. They're like, "Sure, we'll send you one." I'm like, "That's wildly helpful of you. That I'm very suspicious." And they were going to send me a transport chair. So I had to then just like put a full stop on what they were doing and then go and just research alone what wheelchairs were out there, what was possible, what's available, what's affordable, what will be covered. I had the
It's
hardest time
terrible.
finding a wheelchair. How did you find a wheelchair? Do you feel comfortable like saying what wheelchair you have? Because I use a will and I cannot scream, and I am not sponsored. I will scream their praises from mountaintops. I love
I,
that wheelchair.
I,
Yeah, we might be twins on
yeah,
that.
I know. I would say the same thing. So here's my wheelchair story. So when I first walked into to get a wheelchair, I walked into one of these mobility stores. And me and my husband's like, well, we walked in and I said, well, this is just going to be temporary. They're trying to find out what's going on with me, but I'm sure enough, but this is probably just a half a year. Just rent me one.
Get better.
So we rented one. We rented one from month to month because I wasn't like, no, I'm going to buy a wheelchair. No, because I thought, well, whatever's going on, I'm going to get better, right? Because that's what Ann-Britt does. I get sick, I get better. Right? There's no way this is chronic. So we rented a Karma. It's called a Karma wheelchair. It's like a
Oh, I know
regular,
those.
you pour, you can wheel it, but it's harder to do. But it was a good starter one. And we loved it because it was easy for my husband to get in the car. So we used that for a while. But then I found out very easy that it was very hard for me to move around by myself. And I always been an independent woman. And then, okay, I can't go anywhere. So I went on the internet, motorized wheelchairs, and I fell in love with a wheel.
Mm.
And it took me a little time to say I'm going to get that because it is one of the more expensive wheelchairs. But I love the idea that it went into 3 pieces, so my husband could put it in the car and assemble it. So it was like, okay, it works for us. And I also, my whole life, I'm always trying to, be positive or find a reason why I do what I do, if it's a good thing for me. And I feel like the wheelchairs is like our legs, and it's a transportation. It's important for us to have something that really works. And just like that, I didn't use my car. So I felt, this is my car. I'm okay with using some extra money on it, and they had a payment plan. So it's like, okay, I'm doing this. So I got the wheel and I loved it because then just like that, I could go for, get out of the house, go for a walk. I call it walk,
Mhm.
around the neighborhood, and we could go places. So that was important. And then, so I had those 2 for a long time. And then about, I would say 4 years into it, why was it just balloons coming up? That was
I
very
have no
cute.
knowledge of technology. I just sort of like touch buttons and see what happens.
That was very cute. So it's like that.
That's adorable. I was like,
It's
okay,
my
I guess this
birthday.
is what's happening now. Yay, Will.
I know, exactly. So thank God for Will. And then later on, I was like, after I had neck surgery, and some of my neurological issues, I had extreme spasms, was paralyzed and things. My husband had to get out. It was terrible. After my neck surgery, I started getting a little bit better with those kind of things, and I was able to do more things. And I started feeling like, okay, I don't get any exercise that's being in my will all the time. I need to do a little bit, and I couldn't walk. At that time, I was still really bad at my walking, right? And I was dependent on a wheelchair. So then I looked into a smaller wheelchair, like one of those sporty ones, very light, which they have a TI Light. It's called a TI Light wheelchair, like a custom. They're very expensive, but I was extremely lucky there because I went to a store in LA and they had all the display wheelchairs on top, and you could try them and then get fitted and order one. Well, it just happened that one of the ones up on display was perfect fit for me. The fitter said, you know what, even if we were fitting one, this would be the one. And it was like half off. So we got a half off, and then they work with our insurance. So I almost got the whole thing paid for insurance, but it was a process. And it was like they had to make sure it said the right thing on the writing, or it got denied. It got denied, and then they have to write. So, but you just have to have the right people to work with, the right. And I found out that is like you have to find the right wheelchair or the mobility place that works with insurance, right? And we found one, and they were fantastic. And then I got
So
my
happy you had that
wheelchair.
experience.
I know, so I did get that, and I love that wheelchair, but I still have the problem when I go out with that. I wish it wasn't like that. I feel like my fatigue has gotten worse. If we go shopping on the street, I just want to roll myself. But if I roll, let's see, I'm doing this right now. But if I continue doing this already now, I'm starting getting fatigued and I'm getting so tired. So I can't use a manual for too long. But I have a smart drive. It's called a smart drive, a motor on the back of the TI, and that helps a lot. It's like an assist. So I'm very fortunate and lucky that I have my equipment that helps me go places and do things. Yeah. So
I'm feeling like maybe our houses are very similar. Like I have canes in almost every corner. I've got a walker in one corner. I have my manual wheelchair in one
yeah,
side of the house. I have two wheels now because I just upgraded to the new C2. So I have like one
I
wheel
love
in the
that.
house, one in the car.
Nice. Uh-huh.
It is
Yeah.
crazy, but I do want
I
to just
know.
say for anyone who's thinking about what wheelchair to buy, if you are injured, manual is no big, that's just the thing you can get used to. If you are chronic and you have dislocations, I'm just saying, I wish I had known. Someone had told me before I spent $12,000 on my manual wheelchair that that's
Yeah.
not going to be forever because I dislocate my shoulders. And so
So you
even
can't
with
do
the
that. Yeah.
smart drive, I was dislocating my wrists, my shoulders. I was
Oh
getting
yeah.
just the dysautonomia was exhausting. So I just wanted to throw that out there. If anyone's like, I feel like there's not enough education on wheelchairs out there. So I just wanted to throw
That
that
is.
in real quick to the mix.
Yeah. I want to say that just a little thing what you said too, because the one thing with a smart drive, nobody told me either. When you have dysautonomia, it's not perfect, and I'm not saying anything bad about the smart drive. It is fantastic, but if you have dysautonomia and EDS, you have to tap your leg or you have to use your watch, and it's an extra brain function, right?
Yeah.
To do this and look at everything in front of you, and so it's not
I
perfect.
ended up in a wall. I actually ended
I
up
did
in a
too.
wall in Monterey. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it
it's
doesn't
not
work.
anything
Yeah,
against that company. I'm just saying that there
yeah.
needs to be more education on what different disorders will need over time. And that's not
Maybe we should start a flyer article like it's like
right.
perfect wheel.
Just
The wheelchair is perfect for people with EDS and dysautonomia.
like, how much do you love the little mouse controller that you don't have to have the
Yeah,
joystick so your wrist hurts?
you don't.
You
Yeah,
you just and you can I can move it just by moving a pinky or a thumb and I can do like
yeah,
wheelies with it. Like it's
yeah. It's
awesome.
nice. Yeah, it's very nice.
I
Yeah,
just started doing a whole series educating people on what wheelchairs were out there, and then the election happened, and now that's my entire focus. But I will go
yeah,
back to the
yeah.
research on the different wheelchairs.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go into some more stuff, I just wanted to ask you, did you have a different experience? Because I love talking to people from other countries, how the
Mm-hmm.
healthcare system is in your country for chronic illness, and not your country, but like from where you were from. How did the testing go there? Or if that's something you don't want to discuss, that's totally fine. I'm very curious how things are in other countries versus the United States as far as testing, cost, and getting emergency help.
Well, I came to California in '92, so it's been a while. So basically, my whole adult life, I've been in the United States dealing with the medical system in America. But in Denmark, it's very different. For everybody can go into a hospital or get medical treatment for free, and so it's very different. I do know that in Denmark. Because I just for the first time went back to visit Denmark for 7 years due to my illness. I haven't been back, but I made a way to get over there. Found another way to get over, but I didn't want to go
Real
over there.
quickly, do you want to discuss that? How were you able to travel there with everything?
It was. I hate to say that, but I had to. Well, I had to. First of all, and I did a smaller trip before that to New York, and I realized I can't sit in a regular seat because my legs start spasming. So I knew if I had to go to Denmark, I had to go first class because I had to lift my legs up and I had to be able to lay down. So I knew that I had to make the investment of having expensive traveling. So that's what I had to do. I just had to. So I found a time of the year where it was cheaper, in the fall, off season, and found this best time. So I did that, and then I had my husband. I would never be able to do that without my partner because I literally have, I think it was like 50, 70 pounds extra of just medical equipment and supplies, like my feeding supplies. I had my food, my cake farm was in one giant suitcase, and all this stuff. So we had all that, and then we had to rent a car there. I took my manual wheelchair, and I had no choice. So we had all these, to get all these things over there. But I also wanted to make sure when I get over there, because I had just been in the hospital with a bad infection, I had to change my feeding tube. What if I have a complication? Because I had so many complications the last 2 years for my feeding tube. Like every 3 months, I was back in the hospital. So I was afraid of going there and do they have the help? Do they have the feeding tube that I have there? Do they even know about it? It just happened that I connected with someone online in Denmark that has EDS, and we connected, and her family is doctors and know everything about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And in Copenhagen, they actually have a research department just for Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. In Copenhagen, the biggest hospital in Denmark has a research Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Yeah, my eyes went like that too. Okay, I want to go.
Like, when can I get a plane ticket?
So they know a lot about it, and so I felt pretty good because if I had any issues, I knew I would just go there. So that made me feel good. So what was the question? So what? No,
You're doing great. It was my fault. I went on my little ADD tangent and totally switched you off the topic.
No, it's fine.
We were also talking about how it's different in the EU than it is here, for which you just helped me out tremendously, knowing that there's actually a treatment. So, like, there's nothing in California that I found here.
No, yeah.
And I've heard very bad things about the Mayo clinics.
Yeah.
I'm really going to be looking into this Denmark place.
I know. Maybe we should connect, because I have thought about it. I would just wanted to go and go and talk to them and see, what do you think about all this? It's like, well,
I was absolutely sidelining you because I just had a really hard travel experience. So I was curious if you knew some tips that I did not know, because, whoo, that was a rough trip.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Why did you go?
We went to Scotland, which was, I would move tomorrow. I would move there. The wheelchair access I experienced in Edinburgh, I was like, this is a dream. This is everything I've ever wanted. I could get around. I can live. I could actually not be in my room. This is joy. But on the airplane, because the seats are so, I cannot afford first class. There's no way. But the person in front of me, she leaned her seat back, and it completely dislocated my kneecaps. Like, they were just gone. And it wasn't like she was being rude. She was just trying to, like, lean back a little bit, but took my kneecaps out, and that was just getting there. We had a horrible experience at the London airport, and now I can't remember. Heathrow was a nightmare for wheelchair users. I don't know what's going on there, but it's unsafe. It's so not safe.
That's terrible.
We just had a really rough experience with just the airplane staff was amazing. It was just a matter of the seats and just not getting dislocated as people were like,
it's terrible,
trying to adjust.
It's terrible, and it's also scary. You also worry about your wheelchair because you hear those horror stories where them getting ruined. I actually had bought like stickers on Amazon that said caution, handle with care, and I put them all over my wheelchair before they took it. Just, I might have been a little paranoid and crazy, but I don't know if it helped. But
you are not watch them destroy. Like, I can't remember what the numbers are, but it's an insane amount of wheelchairs that get destroyed every year, and it's really upsetting. I would like to talk to you because I was reading through your bio on your website, and you were talking about having to completely change your entire life goals, and how you went, and we just discussed you swimming and being a Pilates instructor and a mother and a wife and an amazing musician. And when you're used to your body doing things, and then your body's like, hey, those goals, they're not even on the table anymore. How do you get how did you get through that shift and create new goals for yourself, create new experiences for yourself? How are you able to make that turn and review your life?
That's a very good question. I don't think anybody's really asked me that question because that was extremely hard. Because my whole life I've been an athlete. My body has been. I worked through use my body as part of my work. Being an activities director, swim coach, and Pilates, and then just like that, I couldn't do any of those. And even when I wanted to do some rehab and just go and swim in the pool, I was a national champion, and I go in the pool, and the doctor says, you should go in the pool. That's where you'd go, right? It was extremely depressing. I go like 2 lanes, and I'm so fatigued, so tired, and my body and then my legs start spasming. It's like this is not working. I couldn't even do water aerobics because my legs were spasming and cramping up, and so that took a long time to get over that. I can't just go to the gym, I can't just go swim, and I can't do any other things that I want. That is me. I felt like that was who I was, identified me, that was me. And I can't do those or anything. I think what really saved me, how I got through that, because all the way from childhood, I've always been a very creative person. I have that creative side of me. I like to draw, I like to sew, I like to make music, and do the other thing. And through my whole life, I always wanted to do music, go that route, but it never took me. I didn't have the support from my first marriage. Music, no, don't do that. That's not, you gotta have a regular thing, right? So I didn't have the support, and you just walk away from that. So you do regular things. But then when you get sick and you realize I can't do those other things anymore, well, you know what? You think a lot when you're home alone and you're in bed. You get tired of trying to watch TV and just doing things, right? And you think a lot about your life. So I took out a drawing book. I started doing drawings. So it was a period where I did a lot of drawings about pandemic. I have pencil drawings and flowers and what I could, right? I'm not fancy and good, but I drew. It's a creative outlet. And I started writing more songs. I started to do these, and I started realizing, you know what? I can't do this anymore. All these other things that identify me. But what I really realized, you know what? But this is really me, and I never had the opportunity to do it before. I always wanted to do music. Right before I fell in love with an American in 1992, right before that, I moved to California. I was actually accepted into a music school in Copenhagen, and I gave it up because I was in love. And then I come over here, and that whole music career path disappeared because, at the time I didn't know, but I was in an abusive relationship. But you're young, and the verbal abuse and put down, and no, you're never good enough, and you don't think about that before you grow up, and then you realize, what was that? Why did I let that happen, and why did I let go of my dream? And how odd it is, and how interesting it is. I have this illness now that is terrible, and it's keeping me away from everything that keeping me in this little bubble, but it actually given me that opportunity to do what I always wanted to do, and that's create music. It's not in the way that I want to do it, in the way that I thought I was going to do it, but it's a beautiful way, and I can share it. So it's like, I just had a phone call the other day I want to share, because I'm coming out with my music, I have people calling, hey, can you do a gig? Can you do a set while you sing? And he asked me how he knows I have chronic illness, and he was so nice to me. And he asked, how long can you be on stage? Because he knew I had chronic illness. And in the past, like, oh, I could, 3 hours, just, an hour break, and no problem. Now it's like, well, on a good day, I can do a half an hour. So I'm so grateful I can do that, because I don't know how I'm going to be in 5 years from now or 2 years, but right now I can do that. And I have to I learned from chronic illnesses, I have to learn to accept where I am right now, because I don't know how next year is and tomorrow is, because it's very unpredictable with chronic illness, right? So I learned to be happy where I am, and what I can do is beautiful. So
You mentioned that future
let go
thing.
of the other things. Yeah.
You're talking about the future thing, and that hits me in the gut. And we're going to get back to a lot of what we were just talking about. So you have a lot to unpack there. But I just wanted to throw it out there because I've gotten to the progression of my disorder that's beyond what I could have imagined. Like, I imagined everything up to this point, and I'm now at that point. And I have no imagination beyond what this is going to look like. And I just want to throw that out there on how scary this is when there's no real prognosis for disorders. There's just like, this is just how that goes. I wanted to talk to you about the concept of bootstrapping and pushing through, because when you're a person who's very goal oriented and you were excelling at almost everything you were touching, especially in the physical realm, and then now we have these disorders where if you push too far, you're in bed for the rest of the month. If you don't push at all, then your muscles give up and you can't hold your bones in place. How do you, and this is advice, but this is just asking for advice, by the way.
Yeah.
How are you able to navigate that incredibly razor thin tightrope of pushing, bootstrapping, and being mindful of not going too far?
I'm glad you asked that question because I'm constantly fighting my mind or myself with making sure I do the right thing. Are you familiar with the spoon theory, the 10 spoons?
Oh, yes. We're nerds, so we use the D20 Dungeons and Dragons theory, but yes, I know the spoon theory very well.
So I learned to use that because, like you said, you're a go-getter, you want to, but I realized I can't, the discipline is most of anything is probably discipline and being able to learn. I think as you get older, you learn to say no. It's very hard, I think, as a woman too, to say no to things. So, but I have no choice because I realize if I don't, then I crash, and then I can't do what I was going to do tomorrow or the day after. So I think it's from learning just to give in and have the discipline to say, you know what, I can't. It's a mix of a lot of things. It's like when I feel like I can't, when I'm so tired, if I have most energy in the early morning. I'm sorry, I'm totally battling right now and I have terrible
You are
brain
doing
fog.
just fine. You have nothing to apologize for.
Okay, so the best way I think I can explain this is let's just go through the day, okay? When I wake up in the morning, the early morning, I'm sick. I'm nauseous, I'm terrible. I feel like I have the flu. And it still gets me about an hour before I can get out of bed slowly. But then as soon as I am up, as soon as I got my meds, as soon as I got my water, I got my feeding tube on, I have my best energy in the morning. And a lot of times that's when I do stuff in the house. So I'm like, get some stuff done. And I could do that without a wheelchair, where I walk around doing little things, right? And organizing. I can't blow dry my hair because I can't keep my arm up. I can't vacuum and stuff because it's stuff I can't do because it's too physical. But I can still do a lot. I learned to adapt. I learned how to not do the same movement for too long because then I fall apart. So I do a little bit here, I do my legs. So I learned to listen to my body. But then it comes a time where I was like, I feel my body. If you're like, if you did like a long run, like let's say a 5K, and you have that feeling like you're getting to that point where you're really starting to get fatigued, but you keep pushing because the 5K is only halfway, right? You have halfway and you keep pushing yourself. But I know that I can't do that anymore. When I get to that point where I know that it's starting to, okay, I let go. And I say, okay, here's my wheelchair. The sofa is right there, and I have to rest for an hour. Even when I play the piano and practice just like that, I'm playing for half an hour, 20 minutes, and I can't focus. I get fatigued. I cannot push myself because then I'm gone for the rest of the day. But if I take a rest, go on the sofa, just hang out, watch TV, do nothing basically for an hour, then I can go back and do a little bit again. And then I rest and do a little bit and rest. And then I remember that spoon fairy, somebody called me, hey, do you want to go for dinner? Even though I have a feeding tube, I still go for dinners. I have my little cup and I just socialize, right, with little I can. But I know I can't do it. I'm sorry. I just had this interview, so I'm sorry I can't do more today. So learning to say no and listening to yourself, have the discipline and be okay with being okay with. Does that make sense?
So much. And I have a feeling our kids are about the same age, and I don't know if you're having the same experience I'm having, where I'm looking at my daughter and her friends and my son's friends who are girls, and they're part of this like new generation, and
Uh,
they have no issue saying no. I am learning so much from these kids because all the stuff
yeah,
I
yeah,
was raised with, they no fucks are given. Like if they
yeah,
don't want to, do not feel comfortable, they're like, yeah, absolutely not. What are you talking about? I'm like, I love you all, and you're giving me so much hope. But thank
yeah.
you.
That's true. Yeah, I think it's a generation, right?
I really feel like I don't know how old you are, but I have a feeling we're probably fairly close in age, and I feel like maybe we were the last generation that was raised with this good girl idea.
Well, I'm born in 70. I'm not afraid of my age. 1970.
Ah, no worries. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
so I'm just a hair's breadth
Yeah.
younger than you.
Yeah.
But I feel like our generation was kind of the last generation that was like, we had first wave feminist parents, and it was still this
Yeah.
idea of be a good girl, be quiet, but hey, you could be president someday. We have no examples to give you, but maybe. And then, like,
Yeah.
we grew up and we raised our kids with like, hey, boundaries, and don't hug people you don't want to hug.
Yeah.
I'm just so excited watching them grow up because they teach me how to set my boundaries, and I've always been horrible at boundaries. You had oh, go
Can I
ahead.
say one?
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to say one thing to that because it's so true. It's like I never thought about it before you said that, but it's true that the kids today are not afraid of saying things and to do things. When I went to Denmark, you know what my kid told me? Because told them I'm worried because when I go to Denmark, everything in Denmark is about family get together. It's a whole event thing. You get together all day long, and I can't do that anymore. And I was really scared about that. Can my family understand that and say, you know what, I can be together 2 hours, 3 hours max, and then bye. They told me, my daughter sat me down, looked in my eyes, and said, Mom, for this trip, I want you to be selfish. And I literally used that because it was hard to be in Denmark and be selfish because I'm so used to, oh yeah, let's do that. My friends want to get together, this and that. Sorry, can't do it. This is period. Be selfish. So I just wanted to mention that they like your kids teach you. My kids taught me that, and I'm still using that today. I have to learn to be selfish. It's hard, but it's
I
nice
grew up in
when
a
your kids help
family
you.
where, like, the nicest thing that could be said about a woman or an elder woman, like the aunties or my grandmother, was that she was selfless, that she never thought about herself.
Yeah,
And that horrifies me in my soul, that this is
yeah,
like, my grandmother was one of the most amazing, brilliant, hilarious women I've ever met. And that
yeah.
the thing that they could say about her was she never thought about herself. I'm like, this is like, what kind of like horror movie did I just
Opposite.
walk
Yeah, I know.
into?
It's like yeah,
Horrible.
yeah,
In one of your interviews, I read that you had said something about the diminished new normal, and I feel like we've been like dancing around that phrase. But I just wanted you to clarify it because we keep hearing, like Oprah, I think was the one who said the new normal is this thing we're supposed to understand, that we can't hold on to the old normal. We have to adjust to the new normal. But I love that idea of putting the diminished in front of it because it's not sugarcoating it, and I appreciate the pill there.
So with I think it has to do with what we talked about. Is about it is the new normal, right? And you just have to let. It's okay. It's okay to just. The new normal is just as good as the other one, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's like the. It's okay. I think it's. I have a brain fog right now. Can you tell me a
We're
little bit
doing
about
just
what?
fine. What I was getting from it is that I have a father who is very, very sick, and he just passed away, but he spent the last few years of his life in bed. And this was a man who is larger than life in so many ways.
Mm,
But he taught me in this last few years of his life that the micro of life can be just as vast as the macro. So yes, it's really exciting to go see, Kilimanjaro, or to go travel the world, or to play at Yankee Stadium, like whatever your big, big things are. That's exciting and huge. There's
hmm.
also exciting and huge in the micro of life.
Yeah,
And the joy I feel just sitting with my chickens watching hummingbirds, and the research I've been able to do from bed. And I think Stephen Hawking, or Hawkins, I'm so sorry. Brain fog is going both ways here, my friend. We're
yeah.
both gonna hold each other's hand through this.
It's still good.
Yeah, he discussed that his disorder was not the horror that people assumed it was, because his disorder gave him the time and introspection to find this incredible universe on the
Yeah.
inside. And I liked the idea of diminished because it doesn't mean necessarily smaller. It means guardrails, which allow you to go further interior.
Yeah, that's
But that
true.
was my
It's
interpretation.
like, yeah, no, I love what you said. That's very true. I think that, when you get sick and you are home, your life goes by very fast before you get sick, right? And you might look
Yes.
back later and say, why didn't I do this and this and this? But when you get sick and you're home all the time, you get this opportunity to do it earlier in life. At the really, what is it you want to do with life, and what beautiful it is just to be here right now at this moment and doing these things that for some might not feel like a big deal, but it really is. That's what life's about. Just like if we look back on our life right now or later in life, what do we remember? What do we really remember
Mm.
about our partners or children and things? It's a lot of times the small things, it's not the big things. The little things matters, if you let them in, right? Big, but what is it that I say? Little things becomes big if you let them in, right? It's like, you have to, when I realize how much what I'm doing right now, actually, it's diminished, yes, but it's so huge. But if I let it accept it and realize that I don't have to. Just even the thing about, there's people that talk about, why are you doing all this right now? Why are you starting a website? Why are you coming out with your first album? Are you too old? Like in Denmark, you're very traditional. Even my family in Denmark, my mom was like, why are you doing all this? She finally understood it when she saw me in person. But you have that stereotype, but you can only start your music if you're young, right? You're too late. Why do you, it doesn't matter what age you are, you can start anytime you want with whatever you want to do in life. And if you have the opportunity to share that with others, it's a beautiful thing. And I don't need to, for me to have success with my music, doesn't mean that I have to be like Taylor Swift or fill a concert hall. Doesn't mean that at all. If I have 10 people that loves my music and make a difference in their life because they hear the same message or they hear something from my song that can help them in their life, then I feel successful. So it comes in all ways, right? Doesn't success in life and what you're supposed to do in life doesn't have to be this grand thing. I think small thing can be just as grand.
Mm.
You can influence a ton of people, but do you really influence as much as if you only have a small group? Does that make sense? Just like I'm trying to.
So much. Absolutely. It's beautiful. I'm going to hope that I get the name of the song right. And if I don't, I'm so sorry. It is brain
Oh
fog.
no,
But you have a new song coming out. I believe it's called Homeland. And
home away,
Home Away.
home
Thank you. I'm
home
so
away.
sorry. I was doing like shorthand while I was writing out my notes this morning, and my wrist is so mad at me.
Sorry.
So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that idea because your songs are about being a storyteller, and I wanted to hear more about this story of the, at least for me, and if I'm projecting, my apologies, but I have real trauma and love for where I grew up. And there's a lot there, and I can't break that tie. I still
Yeah,
feel like my pulse slows when I go to that place. I feel like I'm at home. And I also feel like I have to meet up with all of the trauma that I left from there. And
yeah.
it's this very weird dichotomy. And I was just hoping that you could sort of break down for me what the song is for you.
There's like mixed emotions. What you're talking about.
Mm.
It's like, yeah,
Mhm.
it's. I'm starting to share a little bit about my song that's coming out about a specific about the topic that people have mixed emotions about the homeland or where they grew up. And in many ways, I do that as well. I do have negative things from my childhood, but I seem to draw on the positive ones because they do feel more in my life. Yeah, I had some bad things happen, but I do have more good things. And the song that I actually wrote when I got sick. And it was because just like that, I couldn't go home. There's a big
Mm.
difference in leaving your home country, in 1992 as a 20-year-old and full of life. I'm going to America, and I love it, and nobody's going to stop me, and I can just go back and see my family every other year. no big deal. I say, well, I can do this, right? That's your attitude. And you think that can just go on forever. And it did until it just like that couldn't. And that's when it hits you and you sit back in your sofa or lay down and realize, why did I do this? Why did I leave this beautiful country? The song is about, my home country of Denmark, the beautiful landscape, the beautiful people, Denmark is one big community. They're taking really good care of each other there, and I see Denmark and that community very different than if you just live and grow up there. But when you live in America, it's just a different culture over here. It's all about me, money, if you have money, your status. And over there, it's all about community. We're one big, it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, you can still have the same medication. You still, all this, it's just a nice place to be. And the nature. So I missed all that. I realized how much I missed it, and I never thought about it before I got sick. So the song is about missing home and thinking back, why did I leave my home country? And why didn't I go back when I could? So it's a song about missing your home country. And it's really for anybody that it doesn't have to be a home country. It could also be the place that you just grew up or a place that you love that you can't go to anymore. It doesn't have to be where you got raised, but it could just be a place where you used to be and you really miss it. And you look back at your life, say, why did I let this happen? Why didn't I go back? Why did I stay where I am? And then at the same time, it's also a song about where I am right now, my home away. This is my new home, and I love living here. And this is my home away. So I'm kind of like a hybrid. I'm half Danish and I'm half American. That's how I feel. When I go to Denmark, I feel Danish. When I'm here, I'm American. But at the same time, I also don't feel American. I feel very Danish. I don't fit in. But when I go to Denmark, I don't fit in. I feel too American. So I'm like totally split, right? And the song is about that. It's like about, having these balls in the air and you miss your home, but at the same time, you're also home.
That sounds beautiful. Is that part of the inspiration of your new album, Another Way?
It ties into, yes. Yeah, there's some of the songs that definitely have that theme too. My whole album is definitely drawn a lot from emotions about Denmark. And I feel like my music, my inspiration of music is from my upbringing type of music, the way my dad let me listen to all his albums and records, all from jazz music, classical, Danish pop, and anything. So I feel like it's inspired by that. But my album is really songs of all different emotions from what I was going through being sick, and including love songs too, and hope. Yeah, and not giving up.
I cannot wait to hear it. We are closing on an hour. Can you tell our audience where they can find and download or purchase?
Yes. So I have my website, Ann-Britt-music.com. That's my website. And I will have it released on October 25th. So just a little bit over a week. It will be on all platforms. You can find on Spotify and iTunes, any place you should be able to find it. I'm also here for next week. I'm going to open up a YouTube account with a music video, and there'll be another music video from Home Away. So, and including interviews as well. So I have lots of stuff coming up. And of course, you can find me on TikTok and Instagram under Ann-Britt Sings. And yeah. So
thank you so much, Ann-Britt. If you go to our show notes, if you head over to invisiblenotbroken.com, we will have all the links to Ann as well. So you can find her there. And thank you everyone so much. Be kind, be gentle, and in whatever way it looks like to you, be fierce.